All right, today we're diving into a seriously powerful idea that can completely change how you tackle, well, pretty much everything. It's called the 80/20 rule.
Let me ask you something. You ever have one of those days? You get to the end, you're completely exhausted from running around, but when you look back, you feel like you haven't actually moved the needle on anything important, like you were just busy being busy.
Yeah, if you're nodding along right now, you are definitely not alone. It's what I like to call the overwhelm problem. See, we're kind of taught that if you just put in more effort, you'll get more results. But the thing is, as so many of us learn the hard way, that's just not how it works.
I mean, it is so frustrating, right? To pour all your energy into something, your job, a personal project, whatever, and just feel like you're spinning your wheels. But here's the good news. There is a much, much better way.
So let's get into it. This solution is a powerful idea called the 80/20 principle. You might also hear it called the Pareto Principle. And honestly, just getting this concept is the first huge step towards working smarter instead of just harder.
So, the story behind this whole thing actually starts in a pretty weird place, a garden. Way back in the late 19th century, this Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto, noticed something kind of strange. He saw that just 20% of the pea plants in his garden were actually producing 80% of all the healthy peas. Now that got him thinking, and he started looking at wealth distribution, and guess what? He found the exact same pattern. 80% of the land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the population. In that little garden observation, it's the perfect picture of what this rule is all about. It's a principle of imbalance. It basically says that for most things in life, the huge majority of your results, the outcomes, come from a super small minority of your efforts, the causes.
So here's the key takeaway. A really small portion, think about it, just 20%,
Of all your efforts and everything you put in,
Is what's actually creating this huge number, this massive 80% of your results and your outcomes. Seriously, let that sink in for a second. It means not all effort is created equal, not even close.
just look at that. This visual says it all, doesn't it? That tiny little bar of effort creating that massive bar of results, this is the secret sauce. The whole point isn't to work more hours. It's to find that critical 20%, the stuff that really delivers the goods, and pour your energy into that.
And look, this is not just some dusty old theory from a textbook. I'm telling you, once you start looking for this pattern, you are going to see it absolutely everywhere. Take the business world, for example. This is like gospel. Think about it. A small handful of customers usually bring in most of the profits. A few blockbuster products drive most of the sales. One or two marketing channels deliver almost all the leads. Heck, it even applies to problems. Like 80% of software bugs usually come from just 20% of the code. But it's not just about business, right? This stuff is deeply personal. I want you to think about your own life. You know those few key tasks that actually move your projects forward? Or that handful of exercises that give you most of your fitness gains? What about the core group of friends that bring you the most joy? Yep, that's the 80/20 rule playing out, right in your own backyard, every single day.
all right, so theory is great, and seeing the examples helps, but the million-dollar question is, how do we actually use this? How do we make it work for us? Well, let's break it down into a super simple 4-step action plan.
Yeah, how can you take this natural imbalance and use it to your advantage to stop just being busy and start being truly effective? Okay, it boils down to 4 key things. Step 1 is to identify. You've got to list out your tasks and really figure out which activities are the heavy hitters, the ones actually getting you results. Step 2, focus. Once you know what that critical 20% is, you pour your best energy into it. Then, and this part's huge, you simplify. That means you eliminate, delegate, or just automate that other 80% of stuff that's eating up your time. And finally, step 4, review. You have to do this regularly because what's important today might not be what's important tomorrow.
So really, your whole mission here is to learn how to separate what we call the vital few from the trivial many. The vital few, that's your golden 20%. That's where your focus and energy need to be. Everything else, that's the trivial many. And your job is to slash it, delegate it, or just get it off your plate.
Now, hold on. Before you go and just drop 80% of your to-do list, there are some common mistakes people make. Applying this rule takes a little bit of thought. So let's talk about some of the big pitfalls to avoid. Okay, first big mistake, getting the vital stuff wrong in the first place, or forgetting to review your list. Things change.
Another one is treating this like a strict mathematical law. It's a guide, not a rule set in stone. And this is a big one. You can't just completely ignore the other 80%. Some of that stuff is still necessary, like paying bills, right? The key is to make sure it doesn't get your prime time and energy. So when you pull it all together, what are we really talking about here? We're talking about a massive shift in how you think. It is literally the definition of working smarter, not harder. This really sums it up perfectly. The 80-20 principle isn't about being lazy or doing less work just for the sake of it. No way. It's about doing more of what actually works and way, way less of what doesn't. It's about being radically effective. It's about getting clear on what truly moves the needle for you and then having the guts and the discipline to focus only on that.
And so that leaves us with one big, important question that I want you to really think about. In your job, in your health, in your relationships, what is your vital 20%? Because figuring that out, well, that's the first step to achieving more than you ever thought was possible, and probably with a whole lot less stress.